right. Welcome to Livin in the 8-3. This is a podcast done at the Terrapin Podcast Studio in Spearfish, South Dakota, and is a part of the Terrapin Podcast Network. If you guys, anybody out there thinks they want to do their own podcast, come down and see us, and we will get you set up. This is Livin in the 8-3, a podcast about stories of Spearfish, and my guest today is Pamela Hamilton, a.k.a. Pamela Poole, from when we were growing up. How you doing, Pam?
Fine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on. The reason I wanted to have you on is, like we had talked before, my last guest was Wayne Munt, and he talked a little bit about, we both grew up with Nick, his son, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're a little bit more closer in age, so we might have some things in common with some of the.
He mentioned polka dots briefly, and I thought he was going to steal my thunder.
Oh yeah,
polka dots is my wheelhouse.
Yes, and I think that polka dots is going to be a
recurring theme.
Recurring theme. There are going to be a lot of them, I think, over the years, and that's what's awesome about this.
Yes, I call polka dots, and this is from Michelle Wyke's husband, the center of the universe.
The center of the universe. It definitely was at moments, that's for sure. That's a staple of the youth when you were growing up in Spearfish.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your family and here in town. I know you have a son who's in college, and tell us a little bit about your family.
Yep. My husband's name is Scott Hamilton, and we have two boys. Finn graduated in just this last spring, so he is a freshman at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. Just went home on Monday after a long Christmas break. And then
long for you or for him?
Well, he makes his mark on the house, that is for sure. And then our younger son, Coy, is a junior at SHS.
All right. Nice. How about, do you have any parents still living in town? Anything like that?
Sure. Yep. My mom is, her name is Sandy Salsider now. She's married to Mylan Salsider, and they are here in Spearfish. They spend quite a few months in Arizona over the winter, so that's where they are now. But they are in the process of building a house right across the street from me.
Oh, exciting.
Yes, so that'll be close.
Do you ever go down to Arizona and visit?
We do. Sometimes we haven't. Since COVID, we took that year off. And then we had an old dog. And when they're down there, they're the ones who would babysit the dog. And so we haven't been able to swing it. And then our dog passed in September. Oh, and we right away got another one because we needed a dog. And so now we're back to, we can't leave our dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we might not get down there. And my dad and his partner are down there too. And they're the ones who, we don't see as often. My dad has moved from Spearfish. He's spent a lot of years in Rapid. My parents divorced in the 80s. And he's in Bozeman, Montana now. So we see him a lot, but, he would really like us to.
I have a story, and I don't know your dad or your brother, but I was in Bozeman visiting Steve Lee and Jason Ward and all those guys.
In the college years?
Yep, way back in the college years.
Jason and I rode home together one time.
Yep, and so we went to down to the rodeo grounds, and they were doing the pulling behind the horse.
Ski shoring,
and your brother and your dad were doing it, and they're like, hey, there's a pools from Spearfish. And I knew who your brother was.
Yeah, they loved that. He graduated in 88, and he and I both went to college in Bozeman, and he stayed in Bozeman after graduation, and then when my dad retired, he moved to Bozeman. So he's been in Bozeman for 20 years now. That
was my first experience with that sport.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Everybody was having a good time for sure. Bozeman. So my sister went to college in Bozeman.
Okay.
And my brother-in-law went to college in Bozeman. And I like to tell people that Spearfish was kind of the mini Bozeman. There was a lot of kids that went there.
Sure.
To school after leaving Spearfish.
It definitely has a similar feel. Spearfish even now does feel like a smaller Bozeman in some respects.
Well, Bozeman is a different world. I was just up there for some meetings a couple of years ago, and we were heading up to Big Sky, and we're heading out to Four Corners, and I'm driving out, and I keep waiting for it to turn into farmland for a little while, and pretty soon we were there, and I was like, oh man, this is a lot different place.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And it seems to be a lot farther than I remember it too. Last time I went, I was like, man, we're never gonna get there.
I think it's still the same. I think when we go to Minneapolis, that's where my husband is from too. It's just a couple hours farther than Bozeman, and I was pretty calibrated to Bozeman, and so those last couple hours,
Well,
Bozeman's a good trip.
the last couple hours to Bozeman are a lot more scenic than the last couple hours into Minneapolis.
That's true.
Man, you hit Minnesota, and it cranks down to 70 miles an hour. It's just like, man, I could get out and run faster.
When I lived in Bozeman, it was the time of the $5 speeding ticket.
Oh.
That you paid on the spot right there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You just had to have your cash with you.
And then there was the reasonable and prudent time when.
Yeah. Well, because
was that the same?
I think there was the time where they had no speed limit at all.
Yeah.
And I think I'd missed that. And so then when I was in my years there, you could go 20 miles above the speed limit for a $5 ticket. So if the speed limit was 65, you could go 85. Nice. With little risk. So yeah.
I know quite a few guys that took advantage of that when they were going up there.
Yeah.
They so you were went to college in Bozeman, grew up in Spearfish. Tell us a little bit about. Let's go back to. Were you born in Spearfish?
I wasn't. My mom is from Spearfish. Her family, back to my great grandparents, were born here. And my dad was born in Rapid, so South Dakota folks. And when they were first married, they lived in Sioux Falls for a while and Northwest Iowa for a little while. And my brother and I were both born in that stint. So they moved back here when my brother and I were about 3 years old and 1 year old, respectively, which is about the same age my kids were when we moved back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what is your earliest, if you can think of it, I guess, one of your earliest memories of Spearfish? Summers in Spearfish, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, my first memory was not summer. It was a school memory. Can I tell?
Oh, yeah.
It was my first one. What I just remember very distinctly, I went to kindergarten at West Elementary, that's where the kindergarten was, and we lived in the housing development there on Harmony Heights is what it's called, on Woodburn. And
there was lots of kids.
It was great. And it was new, like our house was new. We were the first owners. And I walked home from kindergarten by myself, which doesn't, seem like a big deal now, but I was like, I felt so independent doing that. And I think now you probably wouldn't let your kids walk home from kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I was doing it, and I had my pink and white dress on, and I was so proud of myself. And I came around the corner at Verdale, where you just turn on to Woodburn, and there comes my mom around the corner. She was going to look for me. And then I was so mad because I was like, I almost made it, and I wanted to do the whole thing myself. So
yeah,
that's an early memory.
That's one thing I say a lot over the time is, man, I'd never let my kids do what I did as far as run around town and just taking off out of the house. And
we did. It was pretty free range up there. So there was a swimming pool there right by West Elementary. I was just going to say, so we swam all the time in the summer, and the pool didn't open for the free swim until I think like 1:00, and like in the morning with swimming lessons and things like that. And my mom would come home for a lunch hour, and then she went back to work at 1. So sometimes she'd drop me off at the swimming pool there, and we would go swimming. One summer, the Wards did the same thing. Jason and John, their mom was, and we were always the first ones in line. And we were probably there like 10 minutes early, and we would.
You could tell who wanted to get rid of their kids the fastest.
Exactly.
Yeah. Will you push your mic that way a little bit, just so it isn't right in front of you? There we go.
Yeah.
Good.
So that's a good memory, and just a lot.
I remember that pool. There was a high dive and a low dive.
There was. Mm-hmm.
And they'd have everybody'd have to get out. They'd have that whole everybody get out, and they'd have lap swim, and they would do the whole. It was as close to the Caddyshack scene, I guess, as you get.
That's right.
Now that being said, there was also a pool at the golf course.
That's right, and we would swim there occasionally, but that was a different harder to get to when you were a West End girl.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Well, it's just the other side of town. Now that seems like it's just just across town.
Yeah.
But back then it was like out of town. It felt like kind of.
I wish they had a pool there.
Still. Yeah, I think that's something that I'm sure they've had discussions about.
Other people
have probably brought that up.
Yes.
But yeah, it definitely was a big part of Spearfish when I was growing up, as far as all the
and
running up our parents' bills.
That's right. In the summer, we spent a lot of time at the creek and did a lot of tubing down the creek. And
Oh yeah, you could get in.
fun.
Yeah, to this day, you get in the creek. It could be the hottest day in August, and it's going to be
Yeah.
freezing in there.
And it will cool you down for the rest of the day. I learned that when my kids were little. If there was a hot day, I would take them down there and I would make myself get in and, go all the way in underwater, because then you would be cool for the whole rest of the day.
And they re-engineered the creek. I don't know what year that
I
was,
remember
but they put a bunch of twists and
that.
turns in it.
That was when we were in high school, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So it flowed a lot differently as
and they made those little islands out there, which were sometimes we would go lay out up there. We also in the summers spent a lot of time at Iron Creek.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with the girls, we would get our 49-cent liter from Taco John's.
Yeah.
And then
40. So that was something I had in my notes. That is the thing that I remember about Spearfish is the liter of pop from Taco John's, and it was like the top of it was like a milk crate.
Yeah, and with
and it had a little clip on it. They clipped it shut. I remember.
See, I don't remember that, because what I do remember is I had a common sense mug that I would use to get my 49-cent liter, because then it would stay colder longer while I was at Iron Creek.
Oh, look at you.
On my air mattress.
Yeah, you were always bound to be an engineer, I guess.
That's right.
How would you, heading up to Iron Creek, you go up there with your family a lot?
No,
when you were younger, or was it
we
more
did a little bit with the youngest, but no, the girls in high school, we would go up there a lot. A lot of us had jobs in restaurants and stuff, so we didn't work until later in the day, so we would go up.
Were you guys big campers?
Not a little bit. We had a stint for a while when I was a kid where we spent a lot of time at Keyhole and water skied a lot. And, my dad is always passionate about whatever hobby he's doing at the time, and then the hobbies would kind of come and go. Yeah.
Yep, I know what he means.
Yeah.
Exactly. Keyhole was our lake too. That's the one my folks decided that they wanted to go participate in. So we were there. We used to have one of those trailers along the little inlet there with a deck, and stuff. And then for a lot of years. I think my parents regret giving it up.
Oh,
actually.
yeah. But they're hard to get now, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole process. Someone was telling me about it.
Yeah. I think they gave up on. They didn't have any grandkids yet, and we were all out running around. And then they're like, we're gonna do something different. And then they sold it, and then 6 grandkids in a row from me and my sisters, and they're like, oh man.
Yeah.
But they ended up buying they had a lot over at that Pine Haven. There at that Keyhole. That's really grown.
Okay. I haven't been to Keyhole in years.
Well, you need to get over.
I know. I do.
So we were talking about the creek, and before, do you remember inner tube in the creek? I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, because we would walk from Harmony Heights, and we would roll our tubes with us, or we always, with like my brother and I, or even our neighborhood friends, we always tried to time a lot of things to when my mom was coming home at her noon hour, or when she was coming home at 5, because we didn't want to walk both ways. We would walk one way. So a lot of times with the creek, we would see if we could get her to drop us off on her way back, and then we'd roll our big inner tube up Woodburn.
Was your mom, did she always work at MDU?
She worked at Black Hills Power.
Or Black Hills Power.
Yeah.
It was over there. It was one of those.
She worked there for a long time. She I think worked there for 27 years total. So most of my childhood, she worked for Richard Sullivan Green and Duncan, which was the real estate office at one point. I think that was maybe kind of her first job after she went back to work, after she was home with us kids. And my dad had the Honda shop in Spearfish, that when they moved back, that's what he did. And so she worked with him in that business. And
so did you and your brothers, did you go visit grandparents in the summer and come back, or we
were home? So my mom's parents ranched at that time north of Belfouche, and so sometimes we would spend a week at the ranch, which, when I think of us in South Dakota, but we were townies. We didn't, and so for us to go out, to the ranch was eye-opening and good for us to do that.
Oh yeah.
So that was about the only time we would kind of get away and
same thing. I'd go back to Nebraska to see my dad's family. My uncle had grew corn, had pigs, so I got
eye-opening. Yeah.
Roofing or farming. I didn't know what I knew I didn't want to do either, but I didn't know which one I didn't want to do.
That's funny.
All right. Well, hey, we've kind of went through. Is there anything else you want to think of? I'm kind of looking at, like summers up until you're about 10 years old, younger.
Yeah.
We talked about the swimming pool. I had talked about 10-foot falls earlier there where Nash Bridge is.
Yeah. Some other things I remember a lot from when I was a kid is, and everything was a big deal, or it felt like a big deal, is things like Crazy Days in downtown
Yes,
Spearfish, the
yeah.
Corvette rally, because we would walk again, walk from our house downtown, and those were like a big deal.
Distinct memories of the wheelie contest at Crazy
Yeah,
Days.
Crazy Days, and any parade, of course,
Oh yeah,
big deal. Yeah.
yep. It's funny, on my Facebook page I have a picture of our class my senior year in the Swarm Day Parade, and
Oh yeah.
we're on the front of that old beat up Impala that we spray painted or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we're right in front of the stadium, but it wasn't the stadium yet.
What
It
was
was
it?
a car. It was an auto body place, auto body repair.
Yeah,
stuff
okay.
on the
I knew
corner
that's
there.
what it was before, but I really don't even remember.
But there's so many of those places where I go by, and I still call them by that.
Yeah.
I still call it Mini Mart. The
Oh,
loaf
sure.
and jug is still Mini Mart
Yeah,
in my
for sure.
brain.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah,
But,
and I liked all the Main Street stores because I had my allowance, and I would like to save up my allowance and then go down and get some. So like they had you could get the Smurfs at, I think it was called Fuller's Gifts
yeah.
or something that was.
Oh yeah, Smurfs.
And I spent a lot of time there with getting my Smurfs.
Sparrow's Bakery, I suppose. I
Yeah,
spent some time in there down on Main Street.
so good.
All right. Well, I've got a little exercise here, a little game. Well, it's a game, but something we can do to kind of spur it on. So on the TV in front of you here, you'll see what everybody else is going to see. And now we're going to bring up. This is newspapers.com.
Oh,
We're going
no,
to put
I was
in
like-
the keyword of Pam Pool.
There can't be anything.
And then, there's all kinds of stuff.
What?
You remember the Queen City Mail?
Oh yeah, I love
Or all of that. So it goes back. So
the honor rolls and things.
yeah.
Yes, I
So
see
I was
that.
gonna say, what were you doing June 12th in 1985?
Yeah, I was on the honor roll.
Yep, junior high honor roll.
85. Yeah, so that okay.
So that would be fourth quarter of eighth grade.
Wow, that's good.
What were you
Oh,
doing?
and there's my brother too.
Yeah, Corey over here. So and then here's some other names: Tara.
Yeah. Tara was my neighbor up there.
Michelle
in Harmony.
Morgan, yeah.
Yeah, Michelle Morgan was too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you remember about the eighth grade, fourth quarter of the eighth grade? What were you doing?
Well, one thing that I remember is I was scheming on how to get a job, and that was the first summer that I got a job at Polka Dots.
Oh, the polka dots.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So I have a question about polka dots. Did you roller skate?
No, we didn't.
Did they roller skate there?
I've heard different things. They might have in the
but it would have
the
been way
60s.
back in the day.
No, we had some
you had the little change
belt.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah, the change belt. Yeah.
Yes, that was fun. But no, we didn't roller skate, and I don't think I would have wanted to. We had the root beer was in those heavy mugs, and no, I would not have wanted to roller skate.
I think a lot of these are.
See, it's just honor roll after honor roll.
Oh, I know. That's why I didn't want you to get into school, because it's all honor roll stuff. Here's one. What is this? This is.
No, see, I was not in the picture. It's just the. See, it's just the honor roll. There's Corey.
Oh, yeah. There you are there. Yep. Juniors. So this is an A honor roll your junior year.
Yeah.
A lot of the same names there. Michelle Wyka.
Yes.
She's just talking about with Wayne about how she used to kick our butt in soccer.
Yeah. I see Michelle on the regular.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah, we a couple times a year. After
here would have been a picture.
Oh, Job's daughters.
Job's daughters.
Yes.
Look at this
cat.
About that. Look at this cat getting married.
That is a mustache for sure. Do we know him?
Wiedenmeyer? I don't know that name. Erickson and Mr. and Mrs. James Wiedenmeyer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's his tuxedo with the little different colored.
I didn't
edging.
think we lived in when guys would look like that,
Yeah.
but evidently.
Oh, that looks a lot like my aunt and uncle's wedding picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. All right, what's this one? June 27th, 1984. Same stuff.
Oh, same. Job's daughters.
Oh, that's the same. All right. I know there's some sports ones here.
Well,
Weren't you a golfer?
I golfed only for 1 year, my freshman year, and kind of against my will.
Kind of against your will.
Well, I wasn't really interested in any sports, but my dad was a big golfer, and I felt like that.
Ooh, what is that?
That
That
was
is
the
the
best day ever.
old Super Read Bowl
And
contest.
I still have that little bookmark that I won there.
You did. Where are we at here? Where are you at?
This is in 5th grade, and I was in the IMA, were you in that? Do you know what I mean? And so I was a 5th grade, but there's 4th graders. Like, do you see Noah?
Yeah.
With his big hair, and Mr. Harmon was our teacher, and he coached at BH.
This
and
guy?
So no, this guy is just a BH football player so Mr. Harmon a lot of times would have these BH kids football players come in to give us an award, and so we had a reading contest that was sort of football themed. And
you still have the bookmark?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
We had after I moved away, I had a trunk or whatever at my mom's house that I had never moved. And so then when we moved back here, she brought it over to my house. It seems to have come into my house somewhat recently, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And so then of course I had to go through it. And this was around the time of we had our 30th high school reunion, which would have been in 19, so not that long ago. And so I had gone through it and got some funny things out to share with people. And that's when I found my bookmark.
Did you guys do a time capsule in high school early on? Mrs. Crambeck had us do a time capsule.
I had
ninth grade
Mrs. Crambeck in 9th grade English, but I don't. Did she give it to you, or how did?
No, she packed it away, and then when we were seniors, we got it back. I think.
I don't feel like I don't. It doesn't ring a bell.
So this is one thing I wanted to ask you. When you were in junior high, you were still at
up there.
The
old high school.
The old high school.
Yep. And when
your freshman year, were you still here, or were you in the new high school?
We were the first freshman class out of the high school. Yep. And so we didn't get to be the oldest class, because my brother, who was a year older, when he was in 9th grade, then the 8th graders and the 9th graders moved out to the high school together.
Oh yeah.
And so then we were the freshmen out of the high school, where they've never had freshmen before, and so then I felt like we were blamed for everything.
Oh, you were.
We had to.
We
had to mature. Yeah. Somebody stepped on a ketchup packet. I don't know who it was.
And what year was that?
So that would have been the fall of 85.
The fall of 85. Okay.
Yeah. So like when I was a freshman, the senior class was the class of 86.
Okay. So talking about high school, tell me what was your favorite subject, favorite teacher, something you
well, I was always a math girl, and I loved Mr. Dazwitz in math. He was
I feel like that might be a reoccurring.
Oh yeah, he was so just low key and just relaxed, and but a very, very good teacher. And I liked school. Obviously, I was could tell from honor roll. I was a good student, and I liked a lot of we had a lot of classes that were fun in their own right. Even if we had who was that man who was, I think he was some kind of assistant football coach, and he taught something like maybe American history or something. Like he wore white shoes, like white dress shoes.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, Phil Clark?
Yeah.
Phil.
And like his class was fun. He was fun. He was a fun guy.
So Phil used to be the head football coach before Mr. Reedy.
Okay.
And then when he stopped coaching, he kept teaching.
Oh, yeah.
What I remember about Mr. Clark was, he would take off the cap off of his Eskimo marker, take it off, and give it a good smell, and he'd start writing his notes and stuff. And he was goofy. Like you said, really good guy. But
and fun class. Oh my goodness, we have Santa letters. What year is this?
This is, I just brought that up. This is 1980.
How are you doing? I am fine. That was my standard go-to.
How are you doing? I am fine. I haven't decided what I want for Christmas.
Just give me whatever you think.
Yeah,
Oh, I
whatever.
was an agreeable child. I was. That's because my
That's
brother
pretty
was not
funny. They
agreeable.
posted them in the.
Oh,
Wondering if here's Ryan Craigos,
I know we didn't all sign our last name.
Billy Wenzel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he doesn't, no salutations there. He just
No,
gets right down to
electric
it.
race car, game life,
Yeah.
game strategio.
Yeah.
Jonathan Kemp, good buddy of mine. I want a digital derby. Thank you for
Oh.
my pinball
Ooh.
machine. He's already getting the
Yep.
gifts. He was already thanking people. Heather,
Yes.
Bo, that's pretty funny. So
Yep.
holidays, did you spend them? What do you remember about the holidays?
Yeah, mostly here. We always, we would go out and get a Christmas tree here, which I've converted to artificial, I have to say. But we would go out and get the tree, and for a while we went through the cross country skiing phase, which my brother still does that a lot. But we would cross country ski to get the tree.
Oh, really?
Back. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's no. Is it a big family affair? Do you get everybody? Does your husband have a big family? Do they all come to
Yeah.
Spearfish, or is it just
no, and I feel like our family's pretty small. My husband's parents have both passed away, and his family was a little, troubled toward the end, and so I think that was part of the reason that he was interested in moving to Spearfish. And
Sure.
yeah, and we see my brother and his wife don't have children, and yeah, so our family gatherings are pretty small now, but nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's and Spearfish is a nice place to have holidays.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I've decided that I do not like to travel. Well, I drove down to Arizona this year to see my folks. That wasn't so bad. It's the first time I'd driven down there. Taking about 2 days and just really saw the vistas.
So my mom and Mylan they go to Arizona early, like early November. And so they're down there for both Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they don't come back because that would be because so you could come back.
Oh yeah.
No, they go and they stay. And so our Thanksgiving and Christmas it's just our little family four. And that's, and sometimes we do go to Bozeman to see my brother, or sometimes he comes here, but we, didn't this year.
So you have a son in college?
Yeah. And so that was new then, of waiting for him to come home and worrying about the weather and all of that. And where we had the bad weather just before, he came home when we were past the heavy snow, but still into the, below zero.
Yeah. Holiday travel was a mess this year.
Yeah. So he was early enough that it was before the Christmas stuff, and he was and he went home late enough that his was fine, and of course direct flight to Minneapolis, and so that's pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah.
I thought Spearfish this year did a nice job with the holiday lights on the main
with the new one. Yeah.
And that's something I remember of when we were kids, is having it
yes,
back and forth
and
across
there's
the
talk
big
of
garland.
that, and that was nice. That was very nice. And I do remember, which is probably the reason they don't have them anymore, is some with a big windstorm, and then they would be all blown.
Oh yeah, they were always up there putting them back up, and it was always a mess. But it made me think. They really.
That was pretty.
I got up one morning to go to work after they had been putting them out, and I headed down the street. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, they really lit this place up."
Yeah.
So you touched on it just briefly, I guess, but what you moved back here. So you were at Bozeman. You went to Bozeman for college.
Yep. And after Bozeman, I majored in industrial engineering, which is kind of manufacturing focused, and I didn't want to stay in Spearfish. I didn't think that I would, because I would have chosen a different profession if that was the case. I'd be a nurse right now, or something that's portable. But I still wanted to be kind of within a day of Spearfish. And so I looked at Denver and Minneapolis, and I chose Minneapolis because their job market was better. It's in manufacturing, especially. And I thought, I'll move there for a couple years, get a couple years experience, and then figure out what I really want to do with my life. And then, of course, was there 15 years and
15 years.
Got a husband and a couple kids along the way.
Well, it's not a bad place to spend 15. Cold place to spend.
Yeah,
15
it was It was nice. And in fact, I really liked living there. It had a lot of, it had great live music that we liked, great restaurants. And then once the kids came along, you're not doing those things anymore. And,
and I'm sure you were coming back pretty consistently to see your mom.
And then, when our kids were little, we would, I would certainly, like on the maternity leaves, I spent, a fair amount of that time here. So we talked about it for a long time. I think we talked about it for so long that I don't think any of our friends thought we were actually going to do it. And we did. Yeah. We finally did.
So when you guys got back here, was there a time or something you can remember where you were like, this is why? Oh. Yeah, that too, I guess. What have I done? Or this is why I came back? Or there's probably, I mean, you run the gamut of emotions, obviously, right, up and down, even.
Well, I think, getting back to this idea that I didn't really want to stay. I liked Spearfish. I really liked growing up here. But when it was time to go, I was ready to go. I was ready to try bigger things. And I like a lot of things that more populated area. I like sometimes a little bit of anonymity. It's kind of nice not to know, everybody's 40-year backstory or whatever. Yeah. And so then I met my husband, who was born and raised in right smack dab in the middle of the city. And he came home the first time that he came home with me was for my 10-year high school reunion. So we're at 1999 at that point. And we'd been dating for a year maybe. And so, I could tell right away that weekend, I knew he is gonna want to move here. I could just tell, because he's an outdoors kind of guy, and also again had some family things he didn't mind putting a little distance from, and so I think I always kind of knew that in the back of my mind that he was scheming toward that, and I was the more practical one, saying it's not that easy to make a living in Spearfish with an industrial engineering degree too. And when we were in Minneapolis after we had kids, he stayed home with the kids. So he was taking a bus downtown Minneapolis and sitting in the cubicle, which is so not Scott Hamilton. Yeah. And so he kind of volunteered to stay home with the kids, which was great that we didn't have to, again, have the daycare thing and on top of your commute. It would have been just very difficult. So I was thankful that he did that. And in that time, we started talking about, moving back. And then I was like, if I need to have the insurance benefits and I just didn't know how we were going to swing it. So when we did finally, I think, we were really kind of flying by the seat of our pants. He was going to work with Mylan, which he did, and still kind of does that. And I thought I would just do something else. I was kind of ready to do something else. And I stayed home with the kids then for those first few years, and I contracted back for the same company that I'd worked for. And so that was nice to make a little money, but mostly be home with the kids. And then once I always thought when the kids are in school, I'll find a job in earnest. And I'd been watching job opportunities at the Sanford Lab in Lee, the old homestake mine, because I knew it just could be a place where my experience would be relevant and all of that. And so eventually I did get a job up there. And I kind of joked that it was a little sooner than I wanted to, because I think it was the year that the Coy was in kindergarten, and kindergarten was still half day then. And I wanted to be home. Coy was the nicest baby. And I just wanted, nicest little 5-year-old. And
I feel like you're
comparing him to my other. No. Yeah. And so I wanted to have that extra time with him, but my mom got that extra time with him. Yeah. And
So I think that story in general, those conversations, those decisions, those back and forths, probably a lot of people that we know have had those, because when you look back there's a lot of people from our age, Spearfish, that have just moved, doctors, 3-4 doctors in town now, and you start seeing some people trying to get back to town. And I think that's definitely a conversation, concern, challenge to moving back to Spearfish. I often say I'm pretty lucky that I was able to make a living in the town, like in the town where I
Yeah.
was born in.
And I think, again, if you are a doctor, a nurse, an attorney, a teacher, anything that where they have those everywhere,
Yeah.
and but I didn't know, but I truly had the feeling the whole time that it would work out. Something
Yeah.
would work out.
Was
And-
it? What
and
did you?
did.
Were you really guys really? Was it? We really want to raise our kids in that.
Well,
environment
yeah, and
as
so
much as anything.
so again, once you have little kids, you're not doing the city things that that the city is good for, but you're still sitting in traffic and
Yeah.
those things. Traffic really was high on my list of
Oh my
reasons
gosh,
to move
traffic
back.
out here. Yes.
You adjust. Like there are times when I'm like, oh my God, and then I realize it's like two cars,
Yeah, exactly.
trying to take a left turn onto Colorado,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm like, oh my God, I've had to wait 35 seconds. So that was a big one for me. And really just having the grandparents close by. I saw this thing just a couple days ago that was saying the only parenting tip that really matters is live close to the grandparents.
Live close
And
to the grand.
it's so true that, I mean, they, that's when here I was then working in Leeds, so I'm a half an hour away. If there's a sick kid, my mom did all of it. She
Yeah.
did and loved it. Well, she seemed to love it. I'm just,
Well, I'll have her on next and we'll find out.
yeah. I used to kind of joke that because, she worked when we were that age. So when I was at West Elementary, I was walking myself home and making my own after school snack. And she would we lived in Sandstone when we first moved back, and she'd meet the kids at the bus stop with a snack in a little baggie, even though our house was 30 seconds away. But, so she was overcompensating.
I think she was, the process is what she was enjoying.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
So, okay, a couple of questions. So, as a kid, you grew up here through high school, moved away, came back. So, let's compare a couple of things. When you were growing up and you wanted a hamburger,
Polka
where
dots.
did you go? Yeah, I think I was just going to say, we're going to get a lot of polka dots out of you.
Well, somebody's going to say Loves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Loves for sure.
29 cents?
Yeah. We ate a lot of Loves burgers.
Those were good
in there.
burgers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, very good. So then now where do you go now for a hamburger? If you're taking your family, you guys are going to go
Well,
same deal,
I know. And I kind of lament that that there's not a great burger joint. Killian's has good burgers. And that's probably what I'd say. You know what else has good burgers? Culver's.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, Culver's would be more in the vein of a polka dots as far as
Yeah.
the food
Yeah.
and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
you cannot go wrong with a Culver's burger. And well then, with working in Lead, they had Louis Burgers, which closed.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if you heard that.
Yeah,
but
I
they
did.
just
That's
closed. And so
definitely a bummer.
I think a lot of times
Good for Louis. It sounded like he was ready to move on.
he was ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lead also has the Sled House, which makes a good
Yeah.
burger.
Yeah. Okay, so Margie's or Bell's Steakhouse?
Well, Margie's.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Margie's. Well, they're both. Margie's was around longer in my
Yeah.
life, I
Right.
guess. I don't know how they compared to being around
Yeah.
and stuff, but those
We
are the
didn't go
two.
there much as a kid because my mom she would have thought that was too extravagant.
Yeah.
But that's like when I was saying that the first time that Scott came home was our 10-year reunion. That's where we had the dinner at Margie's that night. Yeah.
So, remember Happy Joe's?
The pizza.
The pizza
Yes,
place?
I do. And you could go up on they had little steps. You could go up and watch them make
watch
the
them make the
pizza.
pizzas,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was good. And that was a good birthday party place where they had the little clown things. Do you
Yeah.
remember those?
Yeah. Golden Dragon is where
Yeah.
that's where Golden Dragon is now. Those are some of the things. Pizza Hut. We had that Pizza Hut
Yeah.
forever.
In fact,
and ever.
we ate at Pizza Hut a lot. And I remember just thinking that it took forever to get. It's like the wait at Pizza
and it was
Hut.
like 4 degrees in there.
And we'd go over and sit at the video game, but we didn't get to play the video game because we didn't have any quarters. But yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, we ate at Pizza Hut a lot and Taco John's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was just reading something that every year in Washington D.C., all of the pages and stuff from the Midwest have a Taco John's party, and they have a bunch of it shipped in, so they can have.
Well, the deal is the
olays and all
olays
of
have
that
to be
stuff.
hot, so I don't know how
Yeah.
you ship those.
Yeah,
I don't know. How you
I can't imagine. I can't get it shipped to my house before it goes cold.
Yeah, I know. It's like you have to get 2 olays. You have to get one to eat in the car on the way home, and then the other one for the
veteran move there.
Yeah, that's right.
So Taco John's was one thing I was going to talk about.
Oh, because we socialized there.
Yes, that's
it
something
was-
that doesn't happen now that didn't back then. That's where we all
Where do they do that now? In fact, you know who I should ask my children that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of kids that are down at the park, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they meet at, that parking lot. I know there's, but we would always, and we never stayed there long. We would pull in,
Find
chat,
out.
and then you would start cruising.
Well, or you'd find out where the party was. And
yeah, you can't cruise now because it costs $14 a gallon to get gas.
That's right.
Yeah.
We cruised a lot.
Oh, yeah. Put a lot of miles on the bit. So there was the big loop, which would go all the way down by McDonald's, then all the way up around Junix, and then there was a short loop where you'd turn right there at the bank. Mini Mart and come
right. But then we always up Jackson and then took the left there and looped back around.
Looped back around.
Yeah.
So that was stuff, not that. I guess you don't see that, or I don't know if that's a kind of a thing anymore with the high school kids. But we couldn't pull up our phones and say everybody meet here. We had to go there to figure out where everybody was going.
And I don't think we hung out at people's houses quite as much as my kids do that. And I think that might be probably maybe more encouraged now. Parents probably like that. Yeah.
Yeah, kids feel more comfortable around parents than they did.
Exactly. Yeah. I also feel, but I'm not sure. I feel like the high school kids don't drink as much as we used to. We drank a lot, I feel.
Yeah,
like.
I don't know. I can't get a grip on that either, I guess.
Yeah.
As far as
I
don't. They probably do other things more than we ever did, obviously, but probably.
I think that's true, but where we
as much as
and we had a lot of parties up Higgins and
the gravel pits,
and the baseball diamond, and it doesn't seem like maybe they're as organized as that.
And
that's just as well.
Yeah, and you're the punishment is a little bit different now if you get in trouble too.
Oh, okay.
I think that probably.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
so it's working. The deterrent is working.
Yeah, exactly. Back in the day, what would they do? They'd take your beer and they'd dump it out.
Yeah.
and at least they dumped it out, so you knew they weren't taking it home or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that what you'd always say?
Yeah.
But so I think that's obviously the change in Spearfish that way. Mm-hmm. We've gone from like I was saying with Wayne, everybody that comes to Spearfish has that moment where they're like, "Oh man, I just found this hidden gem nobody knows about."
Yeah.
If they came last week or if they came, 30 years ago, that's what their thought was.
Spearfish is just such a pretty town, and I think of that like I had gone to Rapid a couple weeks ago for an appointment, and I'd taken the whole day off work, so I had a couple things I was going to do in Rapid, and then you come back and get off at exit 12, and
it's nice. Yeah, it's a manageable pace for me.
Yeah,
for sure.
It really is nice, and I always liked about Spearfish that it had just one of every school. And, so that if you were in fourth grade, you knew all the fourth graders. And, the same with just the one high school. And I liked that I liked that when I was in school. I liked seeing my kids have that same experience.
Did you get a kick out of your kids going to the same school as you did?
I did, kind of. I did.
And I'd be like, man, this obviously felt a lot bigger.
Yeah.
A lot, more.
Right. Well, when, so we were... So our son, our older boy, was about 3.5, turned 4 shortly after we moved here. So it wasn't too long before he was in kindergarten. And when we went up to something for kindergarten, Mrs. Sander was still teaching there. And so, when our friends in Minneapolis, they didn't know my brother, but my older boy really resembles my brother. And so then you take him to school and, she is like, "This is your brother." We ran into like 3 people at the school that day, and they would be like, he looks just like your brother. And that was new for Finn to be getting that response.
My youngest was the same way. They're like, "You look just like your Aunt Carrie." I mean, and a lot of teachers would tell her that as she was growing up. But so you had mentioned, I think the only, because I had a few teachers that my mom had in school. Yeah.
Like she had Mrs. Jastorf. Did you have Mrs. Jastorf?
I did not.
Because it would have been right.
Yeah.
I might have been like her last class, and you were 2 years younger than me, right? And Mrs. Christensen, my mom had Mr. Schneider.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I had Mr. Schneider.
Yeah. And but with Finn, I think that he only had, and he didn't even. Yeah, he did was choir with Mrs. Woodard. was the only
Yeah.
actual teacher, and she was young.
Yeah,
I
she
remember
was-
when she started.
Yep, and that's
Yeah.
what my daughters both had her. They were in choir, and they just loved her. And I said,
Yeah.
"Oh, she was my music teacher
Yep.
too, way back in the day." They're like, "No
Yeah.
way."
Yeah,
She just
I
retired
think
here
that
recently.
was. Yep, I think that was the only. That was the
And then
only
you think about guys like Mr. Schneider. You brought him up. Man, I would have liked to have got to know that guy now
yeah.
as an adult.
Sure.
Because I bet
Yeah.
I think back on the guy, and he never cut me in. He's as well. He shouldn't have.
Yeah, he was strict.
Yeah, and he was kind of like that, but now it'd be cool to had a chance
Yeah.
to sit down with him and but
Right.
and there's a lot of teachers that way.
Yeah, I know.
And living in a town like this, you get the chance to do that too.
Yeah.
How many of your old teachers do you run it? Mr.
Yeah.
Schluckway.
Mhm.
I saw her for
Mrs.
years. Mrs. Hood was my
Oh,
kindergarten teacher.
Yep, Mrs. Schluckaway lives. So we live downtown now,
Yeah.
and on the same street as Mrs. Schluckaway.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So I do see her in the
You
neighborhood.
live close to the old high school there.
I do. Yep. Yeah.
So, this has been fun. We're kind of wrap it up a little bit, but I'd be remiss if I did not ask you about your job a little bit.
Oh.
You work
Sure.
up at the lab.
Yep.
Can you give us a little bit of an update as to what's going down up there, or
Well,
what you do up there, or what you can? I mean,
Sure.
don't give away any trade secrets.
Yeah, that's
obviously.
right,
We don't
yeah.
want you to get-
well, the Sanford Lab, or it's called the Sanford Underground Research Facility, is located in Lead. It's the old Homestake mine.
Yep.
And so after Homestake closed the mine in 2002, I think it was, that property was donated to the state. And at that point, they started the process of getting that to be an underground science lab. And the challenge, of course, is the funding, right? And so we eventually got into a funding model from the Department of Energy. And so since about 2012, they have been funding our operations up there, and we get a little more each year. And in the mine had been closed for, close to 10 years by the time
Sure.
we got in. And so there was, obviously a lot of infrastructure to be upgraded and things. It's an expensive place to operate.
Oh,
We think of ourselves kind of as the landlord up there. So I work in the engineering department up there, and we have another operations department, and we work with them to maintain the infrastructure and make sure that the shafts and the hoists are working. And we also do build new facilities when we can, or update facilities. And so I kind of manage those types of construction projects.
Are you underground? a lot?
I go underground occasionally. I've got a project in the design stages right now that'll impact the underground, and so I go underground a little bit with that. I work more on the surface. We've got people with mining engineering or mechanical engineering backgrounds that tend to focus more on the underground spaces. But like we are the landlords for these big science experiments that come in, and so we have a dark matter experiment that's underway right now and it's cutting edge science. It really is fascinating
I've heard, yeah.
what they're doing. And of course, the next big thing up there is a project called Dune. And we have the Sanford Lab website is great, and there's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube about this. Because it's heady stuff like dark matter and neutrinos. I mean, it's not easy stuff to kind of get your head around. But we are currently under construction for a very large neutrino experiment. It's called Dune, and this is the project. If you've heard about it, they have to excavate these huge caverns underground, where our previous science experiments have been able to kind of exist with minor modifications to homestake spaces underground, but this one is the huge new, excavations, and it'll be in construction for several more years. But then that experiment will operate for 30 years, studying neutrinos with a beam that's shot from Fermilab, which is outside of Chicago. And so that neutrino beam will go through the Earth to our detectors underground in Lead. Yeah. And it's an interesting place to work.
As far as I know, they're not making that up.
Yeah, right.
They could be making all that stuff up, and I would have no idea.
Yeah.
Sure, sounds good to me.
Yeah, neutrinos. Yeah,
But hopefully, what they're doing there is going to. So, how many people do you have running around up there? Do you think?
So for our employees, we're employed by the South Dakota Science and Technology Authority, and we're coming up on 200 employees.
Okay.
Which is that's a nice number. But then all of the science experiments or the contractors working on the underground excavation are not our employees, and so there's many, many more on a daily basis.
And so that obviously affects, real estate around here, things like that.
And it's great
because most of those 200 probably aren't like you, where they grew up around here.
Some have come down. A lot of them, quite a few of them are. There are a lot of jobs. If you're maintaining the shafts and the underground spaces, it's very similar to a mining job, and so you get a lot of folks who we still have quite a few homestake employees where they're retiring but we still have quite a few. But it's a great thing for the local economy.
Yeah, that's that, and it's going to continue to grow. I imagine as far as
So I did think when I said that traffic or escaping traffic was one of my biggest motivating factors in moving here, and I do appreciate it, but I commute 30 minutes to Lead, and when I was in Minneapolis, my commute was only 20 minutes, but it was a high stress 20 minutes, and several times a year it was 40 minutes, and sometimes it was an hour and a half if there was a snowstorm right at commute time. So,
and sometimes being stuck climbing out of Deadwood isn't the worst place to be stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
Or going through Deadwood, because it's kind of stuff to look at.
Right.
And well, I appreciate. Is there anything we didn't hit that you wanted to talk about? I just want to talk about Spearfish. Some of the stories that come around.
Did you have a favorite teacher?
Oh, I did. Probably. Oh, I didn't have a favorite teacher, but my favorite subjects were probably like history. Mr. Barnes had a big effect on me. I was
me too.
I was a journalism guy. I have a journalism. I am mass comm minors in journalism, and so I would, worked on the yearbook, wrote for the Lookout or the Outlook Lookout, a little newspaper.
I do remember that
we used to do every week
and then
stuff.
Mr. Barnes had a column in the Pioneer I remember sitting at my desk, and I would always read the Pioneer online when I worked in Minneapolis because I'd have to see who died, and he had a column that I was enjoying.
Yep. So as far as like stuff I still use to this day, when I'm writing and stuff, I'm still doing different things. And then obviously
I do too with his writing, because he always said, just be very direct, no extra words.
Absolutely,
just
no extra words.
Yeah.
And he uses what's the comma that everybody gets mad about?
Oh, the Oxford comma.
The Oxford comma.
I've never given that up. It's not in
I use it. Do you use it?
I do too. And our style guide at work says not to use it, and I don't care.
And he taught the Oxford comma, didn't he? Yeah. So I do that. I do that all the time too. And so little things like that. Mrs. Trezona, obviously, I think affected everybody.
Yeah.
Because she had you reading things you didn't want to read.
Yes, and that's where we were reading all the ones you're expected to read. Like
another one, if you said you had an idea of that lady, but if you sat down with her later on, you probably would have.
Oh, she was interesting. Yeah, and a lot of times I would hear how you hear things about the teacher, what they're going to be like, and it might not be your, like I think a lot of people thought she was really scary, and she was not scary. But again, I was a good student who liked to read and write.
Well, people with expectations are scary when you're.
My brother and I quite often didn't have the same approach. So he would tell me about a certain teacher, and then it wasn't quite as bad for me.
Well, my sisters, they struggled with being my little sister when they called little Douglas or little boy. But they didn't struggle with it, but it was. But my sister that was 9 years younger than me, Carrie.
So I don't remember her. I remember
Tara,
a couple
years younger. Yes. But then Carrie was later on, but she even still got it a little bit.
Oh yeah,
the teachers were around.
Sure.
But there wasn't a lot. I don't think there's any teachers around still. That Mrs. Hood was probably my.
Now I see her when I go to vote.
Yeah, I see her quite a bit, and it's really nice to.
Yeah.
I think I was in her first kindergarten class or one of the first.
Oh yeah.
Central school.
Sure.
Here, maybe. Or...
I see Mr. Larson around town. Len Larson on the regular, and Tom May. I was the guidance counselor, and
Tom was big. He's a big baseball guy.
Oh,
so Tom and I always got along pretty well.
Yeah. So it is always fun to.
Mr. Binder, did you do pottery? Did you do photography? Any of that?
No, I remember him. Yeah. Those were up in Were those in high school? Yeah, no, I didn't do any of those.
Yeah, he was the guy. He was the corduroys, socks, and Birkenstocks.
Oh,
back in the 90s.
Oh, that's good. And then I got to Bozeman, and they were all like that.
Yeah, exactly. I was wearing. I was just telling somebody the other day. I started wearing Birkenstocks when I bought some at the Spearfish clothing or
Surface Bootery.
Spearfish Bootery, Ed's place there, and people were making fun of me. And then in 2 years
Did you wear
later,
them with your socks?
I did.
Oh,
Pulled up.
Yeah.
I mean, I was ridiculous high school kid,
Yeah.
But I wasn't wearing them with like wool socks. and
Oh,
stuff like
I did that in Bozeman. I won't
Yeah.
lie to you. I did that.
I was in Bozeman for Y2K.
Mm,
We went up there in '99. We were there on that New Year's Eve,
Okay.
waiting for the world to shut
Yeah.
down. We figured
Was-
that'd be a good place to be.
were you with? Did Steve have his bar there?
Yeah, Steve had the Zebra Cocktail Lounge and
Yeah.
Colonel Black's. I think.
And that was, I think he opened that up really kind of just as I was leaving. So I might have gone there once, but I remember going back to see my brother one other time and going down there.
So our typical move when we go to Bozeman to visit all the boys is we would drive out and try not to get pulled over on 212
Mm-hmm.
when we were driving too fast. Then when we'd get there, we would go, it'd be a Friday afternoon, we'd go to the Pickle Barrel.
Great
on
sandwiches.
campus
Yep.
And buy a big old sub.
Huge sandwich. Yeah.
And that's what we'd eat all week. We'd take a couple bites and then we would go next door to the parkway.
Yeah. Oh, you could buy beer there.
And buy as much beer as we could fit in the back of the car and then hang out and go to the football game or whatever was going on.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that Pickle Barrel sandwich, by Sunday you were down to the end of it. Like, yeah, we got to get out of town.
Those were big sandwiches.
It was all about the budget back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
drank a
that's
lot
fun.
of what did we drink up there? Molson.
Oh.
That was the drink when we were up there.
Okay.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of, like I said, Bozeman was kind of like Spearfish is kind of like the mini Bozeman back then.
Yeah.
It felt
Well,
like-
there weren't a lot of Spearfish people there when I was there. Actually 3 girls from my class, Tara Matson, Tashi Johnson, and Maris Gebhardt, all 3 went there, and we were all in the same dorm. And I was the only one who stayed. Tara left after a year. Tashi left maybe after a couple years, and Maris stayed for a while. But yeah.
Well, that's the goal for this in the
Yeah.
future is when all those ladies come to town.
Well, yeah.
This
So
next time
that's what
around,
we have to. So when
we'll get everybody
after our 30th reunion, my close group of girlfriends, we kind of recommitted to seeing each other. We're older, our kids are older,
Oh, yeah.
a little more disposable income, a little more free time, and so that's I see Michelle Leica, Amy Bell, Nikki Hunt, and Dawn Danko mostly, and we were just in. Oh, we were in Denver this summer, and we're planning our next one in Florida in the spring, and so
You guys
yeah.
will have to start your own podcast, and we'll produce it. You can do it from wherever you're at.
That
We'll
would be
get you
fun. That would be very fun.
do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I hope we got to everything, and if we don't, we'll do it again.
It was fun
All right. Thanks for
talking
coming.
about the eight.
Talking about being the old people in town. I'm getting older and older and older. I feel like.
We're not old
Like,
because
well, I'm walking around telling my kids, I remember when that place was this, and I remember
know.
same
Yeah.
stuff my dad used to do. I just shake my head.
That's true. Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks.